Hello everyone, Coach Dave here, and would you believe it, there's finally a different daily race that is actually exciting to do on Gran Turismo Sport. And I gotta say, I haven't had this much fun in a daily race in a while. We're here at Spa, it's in the rain, which adds a nice little variable, and it's a decently long race, it's daily race C. Frankly, I think everyone should be doing this race. The only downside is this: when you start in the top 5, you get put into the middle of the chicane, so your chances of winning the race against equal competition is almost out of the question. So we're going to skip the ridiculous lap 1 and go straight to lap 2. Starting here, I did start in 4th, qualifying was okay. As always, if you want to know where to brake precisely, where to get on the power precisely, then I first recommend looking at the world record from the leaderboard section in the interface in Gran Turismo Sport, or maybe watching one of Key's videos, Key 25, if he has actually put out a lap guide for this. I'm not sure, but my videos are more centered around the concepts of each corner, and we're going to use a race as an example of where to focus on that. So we've got 16 minutes of racing and a little bit of coaching for this particular video. Definitely going to keep playing this more and more throughout the week, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. So, first thing to note about Spa-Francorchamps, in the wet or the dry, there's 2 sectors which are effectively straights, and in the middle sector is where all the corners happen. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is always actually focus on the middle sector, get that right, and then start to work on sector 1 and sector 2. So in sector 2, where we are now, let's just start here. We're heading down to Pouhon, and on the right you'll see some braking boards which sadly don't exist in real life. I wish they did. You're going to brake around the 50 meter board. I think it's 50 meters. It's about 20 meters before the marshal post, and you want to get this corner done in 4th gear in the Audi R8, which is the fastest car for this combination. Just be aware that you have to fuel save, and when you go through Pouhon, you want to be getting the car pointed as straight as possible so you can get on the power as soon as possible. Going through Piff Paff here, also 3rd gear. Key thing is to minimize the wheel spin in this car. That's really important, because you will actually experience some tire wear during this race, and it's going to affect your performance. When you're going now through Stavlo 2 and starting the 3rd sector, get the car pointed straight here as well. So the thing is, it's very easy in the rain, especially in this game, to have oversteer or understeer. It depends how you enter the corner, and my suggestion is you got to provoke a little bit of oversteer going in and then use a higher gear to pull you out without any wheel spin. Blanchimard there is a little flick of the wrists. You do have to tap the brakes to get the car pointed in the right direction. If you turn in too smoothly, you're going to understeer off the track, and that's one of the areas where it's very easy to get a penalty if you run too far wide. So be wary of that. As you exit the final chicane, short shift to 2nd gear. So you just use 1st gear just to get a little bit of momentum, and then almost immediately shift to 2nd gear. Same with this hairpin here, starting sector 1. This is the only the most important corner in this sector in the dry, because Eau Rouge is easy flat in the dry. But in the rain, you're going to have to treat Eau Rouge with a little bit more respect. So I actually brake quite early through here. I try to avoid the inevitable rear end slide and try to get as straight a line as possible through there. If you want, I would recommend just rewinding, because in this particular lap, that's the best I got it. I was able to go through there in 5th gear. Sometimes you would need to shift down to 4th, especially in the Audi, and just avoid the rear end stepping out before you go into the turn. Going through now to Lecum, ideally, and I don't really manage to do it in this particular race, but I did do it in my quali lap, or my fast lap for the grip positions. You want to straight line the right hander. We will cover it again as we go around. And then turn 8 Bruxelles, it's downhill, and you have to double apex it. So turn in and brake, catch the first apex, go a little bit deeper through the middle, and then clip the second part of the curb, staying as much to the right as possible so you can prepare for the left-hander that I just went through. You can go through there in 2nd, but make sure that by the time you get to the apex, you're in 3rd gear, so that when you get on the power, there's no wheel spin. You'll see there that I try to straighten the car, I point it down the hill as much as I can, and then I'm as patient as possible on the throttle going down the hill, again to avoid the wheel spin. And also, it's very easy to get snap oversteer there and then run wide on the exit of Pouhon onto the curb, which will then sometimes point you straight to the wall. Through Sector 2, it's very difficult for your competitors to overtake you, so keep that in mind. If they're behind you and they're hounding you, just take your normal racing lines, and if the guy behind you has any respect for your driving, he's going to wait for this section here, Sector 3, or get you at the top of Eau Rouge in Sector 1. So now, Sector 3, minimizing distance covered. I like to connect this left-hander here. I like to connect it to Blanchimont, and just tapping the brakes. In the game, you can use a little bit of grass there, and then just maximize the exit. Just be careful of the AstroTurf as you exit there. Braking here is not easy. There's a white line just after the advertising crossover, and that's kind of your braking point. If you brake too far beyond that, you're going to miss the corner. You'll gain a lot of time going in, but you're going to lose even more time going out. So you have to make sure that you get that first part of the chicane right, in order to get a nice good exit, clean exit to start a new lap. Very easy here also to miss the braking point. That's probably the best I got the hairpin throughout the race. Most of the time I was understeering through there because I couldn't quite manage to get the rotation before the entry. A lot of drivers though were able to do that, and that's the key to a fast Sector 1 time. And then going through here, I managed to provoke enough understeer, because that's actually what you want through Eau Rouge in this game, in the wet. You don't want the oversteer going up the hill, because it's very easy then to cut the track and get track limits, which is the other threatening area compared, as well as Blanchimont, where you will get a penalty for cutting track. Here I brake just before the curb starts. You want to get onto this curb here on the right, even more if possible, and then really maximize that AstroTurf on the left, staying to the left as much as possible, and then getting the car pointed straight for the exit, getting on the power as soon as you can. You can go through the first right left in second gear, but I was using third gear in the race to keep the car more settled. In the rainy conditions, if you're putting too much energy through the car and the car's sliding everywhere, you're going to lose time. So it's actually key to try and stay as smooth as possible, and even if you do go sideways, it needs to be within your limits of control. You're not sliding unintentionally. It's more about, the slide is more about positioning the car than it is about catching some unnecessary oversteer because you were too aggressive on the power or you braked too late. So keep that in mind. In the rain, even in real life, you have to keep up the rolling speed. This helps with tire temperature and stuff in real life. That's not really affected in the game. But the concept of maintaining a rolling speed while staying on the ideal racing line is key to being fast in the rain. Here I managed to get some nice rotation through Stavelot 1. It's very easy to understeer through there because it's downhill, and that helped me position nicely for Stavelot 2. So if you mess up Stavelot 1, if you understeer through there, you're going to go too wide onto the AstroTurf, and Stavelot 2 is going to become a corner where you're just drifting through it, unnecessarily putting energy through the car, and it's going to compromise Sector 3, which is effectively a straight with a chicane at the end of it. In this car, I had to fuel save quite a bit for this race, so what I would do was, given that the first lap was a write-off anyway because of where I started, I would fuel save aggressively on that lap, fuel save a little bit in lap 2, and then really start to push lap 3 to lap 7. The guy behind me, Malakem, sorry buddy if I am butchering your name, initially I thought it was Malcolm. He was really fun to race against. We did 2 races together, and this is the first of the 2 races. We both managed to stay quite close to each other, fighting for the podium position. In the second race it was even more crazy, because in the first 2 laps he pulled a 2-second gap which I couldn't catch, and in the final lap just managed to catch him up because he made the smallest error going through Eau Rouge and had to serve a penalty. So just be very wary of that. He was actually very fast in the slow stuff, and especially heading to Lecum, he was able to get to second gear sooner than me, and got much more rotation. The last thing I wanted to add is when you are racing someone, I would recommend that you be patient and time your overtake on the Camel Straight, which is just what happened there. Malak M managed to get me on the Camel Straight. And then if you do get overtaken, just be very careful when you brake close behind the guys. Here I was just able to avoid him, but the next few times I tap him quite a few too many times under braking, because the car's just sliding a little bit more in the rain, and you want to avoid that. So give the guy in front of you a little bit more space to keep things clean. I'll fully admit that I misjudged my braking here. I thought I was braking early enough, to be dead honest, but it still wasn't enough. And 2 or 3 times I hit Malakam, and let's just call him Malcolm. It rolls off better. So I tapped him and he ran wide, and I had to give the place back. So just be aware of that. There's one where I tapped him. Going through here, piff paff. Very important to stay as close to the curb on the right as possible. Now, and so that's so you can open up the left hand of the piff paff, because you want to get, again, the car pointing straight. The straighter the car is in the rain, the sooner you can get onto the power. And that's the thing. The cars in the rain, they don't like any steering angle to be applied while you're applying too much power, because then you get that snap oversteer vibe. So just a quick comment on what is Spa like in Gran Turismo Sport when it's wet compared to real life. And sorry to say, there's not really much comparison, primarily because in Gran Turismo Sport in the rain you still have to take a normal racing line. It's just everything is more slippery. So in real life, if you took the real racing line through the slower corners, you would really struggle for grip. You get a lot of understeer. And the high-speed corners are obviously much more scary. You don't flick the car through Blanchimont like you do in the game, and you definitely don't flick it through Eau Rouge like you do in the game, because you'll be facing backwards and collecting a €200,000 bill for damages to your car. So in real life, it is quite a bit different. But that being said, I don't care about that. What I did care about was this element of having to drive within a margin to maintain the grip or the direction of the car. Really makes, to me, the racing a bit more interesting. It makes it very difficult to catch guys in front, difficult for the guys behind to catch you if you're driving well, but still leaves a little bit of an element open to making mistakes and forcing you to stay focused, because it's not that easy to put the perfect lap together in the rain here, and it's very easy to get the car pitched into a slide if you brake just a fraction too late or get on the power too aggressively. So to me, that just increases the enjoyment of the game. That's a positive element of, say, iRacing, where the cars themselves are much more difficult to drive, especially the manual ones where you have to change gears correctly with the clutch and everything. There's a lot more elements open to making mistakes, and that makes, for everyone, the racing, the driving more enjoyable. So I really wish that Gran Turismo Sport had more races like this, where there's actually a few variables at play. There's the rain, there's a bit of fuel consumption, there's using the right tires, etc. Trying to get your tires to last to the end of the race. I mean, by the end of this race, both of our tires are pretty smoked from the wheel spin that we were generating. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is if you are able to drive a smoother line or smoother lap compared to other people, the last two, that's going to serve you much more in the long term. So maybe you lose half a second in like per lap for the first 3 laps because you're trying to minimize wheel spin, but I promise you in the last 2 laps you may actually see that your times improve compared to the other people. And that's actually what happened in race 2 between myself and Malakem over here. He got the gap and was able to push far ahead, but once I realized that I wasn't going to be able to catch him, I didn't give up, but I kind of resigned myself to 3rd place, and started to just drive in a much smoother way. And the last 2 laps I ended up having much better tires than he did. So in the end I actually managed to catch him just because of a tire wear management, which was in this case a coincidence, but it's a lesson that I want to pass on to you guys as well. So approaching now the final lap, this podium fight's gotten pretty intense. I misjudged the braking. You see there, even though I braked earlier than normal, it still wasn't enough to avoid touching him. So please just keep that in mind when you're racing other guys. Even if you don't do it on purpose, you know that that guy who you hit is going to think that you did it on purpose. So just be aware of that. We now got Alpine behind us, who's definitely hunting. And just there, Malakem got a penalty, I believe, just for a small cut. Just trying to take Eau Rouge too quick. My advice, because you have to lift through Eau Rouge, go slowly in so that you can accelerate through the corner and up the hill. That is the key to taking that corner quick. Finally, I managed to maximize the curbs like I was meant to through Lecum and how I advised. So for those of you who stuck around to the end of the video, you got a little bit of bonus there. You got to see the right way to go through Lecum, and then eventually I pull away. So eventually I managed to get this 3rd place. But all that being said, it was just still an epic race. It's just a shame, I think, that lap 1 is a write-off if you're starting inside the chicane. And just in general, the gaps at the start of this race are just way too big, and I think Gran Turismo can calibrate that, because I'm pretty convinced that at the FIA World Finals, when there's a rolling start, the guys are starting much closer to each other. So they're obviously keeping that gap, because when you get to turn 1, they don't want everyone to ram into each other, but it's still, whoa, look at that snap oversteer. It's still a nightmare when you know that, you know, the people around you are respectful and they're not going to bump into each other unnecessarily, except for Dirty Dave, and they just give you these massive starting gaps. So let's hope that one day gets fixed. I mean, we still have to focus on, they still have to focus on sorting out the penalty system. They've kind of waved the white flag and just let us all ram into each other. But yeah, that's the story of Gran Turismo. You got to deal with it. I'm just happy, finally, that we have a daily race, which is actually really enjoyable and unique, because I can't remember the last time we had a wet Spa to drive around. So that kind of completes this race review and lap guide, little combination. Thank you very much to my Patreon members, as always, absolute legends. And of course to my channel sponsor, Thrustmaster. And if you're looking for coaching, ping me. You can do it via my website, davidperel.net/coaching. Until next time, which will be very soon, posting more videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you around the next lap. Cheers.